The first sound she noticed wasn't the laughter behind her or the scrape of boots on concrete. It was the soft rip of fabric, a quiet, intimate sound that felt louder than the city. Maya froze, the evening air suddenly colder against her skin. She looked down and saw the clean line where the sleeve of her uniform had been sliced, not enough to expose her, just enough to humiliate. Around her, the bus stop glowed with fluorescent light, commuters staring at their phones, the city pretending not to see. The men laughed again, louder this time, feeding off the moment. Maya lifted her chin, breathing through the shock, reminding herself why she wore that uniform in the first place. Maya had chosen service because she believed in order, in showing up when things were messy and frightening. Her job wasn't glamorous, and the uniform, creased and practical, had become part of her identity. It reminded her of early mornings, of training drills, of the promise she made to herself after her mother died that she would do something that mattered. She had learned to stand tall, to be calm in storms. Still, standing there with her sleeve torn, she felt the old ache of vulnerability creep in, the one that whispered that kindness could be mistaken for weakness. The men circled like they owned the sidewalk. They were careless with their words, careless with their blades. They joked about respect as if it were a punchline, tugging at her jacket, daring her to react. Maya didn't scream. She didn't swing. She did what she had always done in hard moments. She steadied her breath and looked them in the eye. "This isn't who you want to be," she said, voice level, almost gentle. The words landed wrong. Laughter cracked into something sharper, something meaner. Across the street, a man paused mid-step. He was ordinary in the way people who carry extraordinary histories often are. Jeans worn soft at the knees, a hoodie pulled up against the chill. He had a coffee in his hand and a phone buzzing with messages he hadn't checked. To anyone watching, he was just another commuter. But when he heard the rip of fabric, his body remembered a different sound, the snap of canvas in the wind, the quiet before chaos. His eyes lifted, and the world narrowed. Ethan hadn't planned on intervening. He'd spent years learning the discipline of restraint, the cost of stepping in without thinking. He knew how fast things could escalate. He also knew the look on Maya's face. Not fear exactly, but resolve under pressure. It was a look he respected. He set his coffee down carefully, as if calm itself were a tool, and crossed the street. He didn't announce himself. He didn't shout. He stepped into the circle and stood between Maya and the men, hands open, posture relaxed. "Evening," he said, voice steady. The men scoffed, surprised more than threatened. One of them waved the small blade as if it were a toy. Ethan's eyes flicked to it, then back to the man's face. He saw the tension in the shoulders, the weight distribution, the telltale signs of bravado masking uncertainty. What happened next took less time than a breath. Ethan moved with economy, a clean sequence that seemed almost gentle to the untrained eye. A step off the line, a turn of the wrist, a controlled sweep that redirected force instead of meeting it. The blade clattered to the ground. Another man lunged, and Ethan was already there, shifting, guiding momentum away, pinning without striking. 2 moves. No drama. No excess. The circle broke apart as quickly as it had formed. Silence rushed in, heavy and stunned. The men backed away, suddenly aware of how public the sidewalk was, how many eyes had lifted from screens. They muttered curses that didn't carry weight anymore and disappeared into the city's noise. Ethan released his hold and stepped back, hands up again, showing there was nothing left to fight. Maya stood there, heart racing, the cold air brushing her torn sleeve. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She hadn't needed saving in the way stories usually told it, but she was grateful all the same. "Thank you," she said finally, meeting Ethan's eyes. There was no hero's grin there, no hunger for praise. Just concern. He shrugged lightly. "You were handling it," he said. "I just made it end faster." A small crowd had gathered, unsure whether to clap or disperse. Someone offered Maya a scarf. She accepted it with a smile that surprised her with its steadiness. A woman touched her arm and whispered, "You didn't deserve that." Maya nodded. "None of us do," she replied. They waited together for the bus, the ordinary rhythm of life reasserting itself. Ethan asked if she was okay. She said she was, and realized it was true. The rip in her uniform felt less like a wound now and more like a reminder. She learned Ethan's name, and he learned hers. He didn't talk about where he'd learned to move like that. She didn't ask. Some stories earned the right to be quiet. When the bus arrived, Maya hesitated. "You didn't have to step in," she said. Ethan smiled, a small, tired curve of the mouth. "I know," he replied. "But sometimes you see a line being crossed, and you remember why lines exist." He picked up his coffee, now cold, and waved it off like a joke. They rode together for a few stops, the city sliding by in streaks of light. Maya thought about the men, about how quickly cruelty could masquerade as power. She thought about Ethan, about how real strength often looked like restraint. She thought about herself, about the quiet courage it took to speak when silence would be easier. As they parted ways, Ethan turned back. "For what it's worth," he said, "your calm changed the whole thing." Maya felt something loosen in her chest. "So did yours," she answered. Later that night, Maya folded her uniform with care. She stitched the torn sleeve herself, needle moving in and out like a promise. She didn't hide the seam. She let it show, a thin line of resilience. Somewhere in the city, Ethan walked home, the memory already settling into the long catalogue of moments that had shaped him. Not the fights, but the choices to act with humanity. The next morning, the bus stop looked the same, but Maya stood differently. She greeted the driver by name. She smiled at a woman juggling groceries. Kindness, she realized, wasn't the absence of danger, it was the decision to meet it without becoming it. And sometimes, when cruelty tried to make a spectacle of itself, the most powerful response was a steady hand, a calm voice, and the reminder that we are stronger when we look out for one another. The city kept moving, as cities do. But in that small, ordinary place, a torn sleeve had been mended, not just with thread, but with the quiet certainty that compassion, backed by courage, could stop harm in its tracks and leave hope standing where fear had tried to take hold.